conclusion is that this father abandons them. You see the problem, which is clearly a problem of today. The army of dead young men was on the side of destruction, of hate. They existed on the hard side of negation. But they wait for an orientation, for a negation which, under some law, maybe some paternal law, reconciles destruction and subtraction. They wait for something like that, on the part of destruction. But contemporary leaders abandon them. So they have only the destructive part of negation for themselves. They have only, I quote, desperation that knows no laws at all. And the description of their subjectivity is quite an expressive one. Yes, they were on the side of hate, of destruction. They were angry young men. But now, it is a very striking formula. Hate becomes love of hate. This love of hate is negation as purely destructive. Without an access to subtraction, without fathers or leaders, we have to face the nudity of, I quote, the barbaric breasts of the sons. Greek poetry is always an anticipation, a vision of the collective future. We can see here that Pasolini describes the terrorist subjectivity. He indicates with an astonishing precision that the possibility of this subjectivity among young men or women is the lack of any rational hope of changing the world. That is why he creates a poetical equivalence at the end of the fragment. He creates a poetical equivalence between, first, desperation, the nihilistic consequence of false negation, when the domination is on the side of false negation, negation without destruction, we have nihilistic consequence, desperation. Anarchy, the purely destructive political version, and, I quote, free love of holiness, which is the religious context of terrorism, with the figure of the martyr. This equivalence is certainly clearer today than it was 40 years ago when Pasolini wrote Victory. We can now conclude the political problems of the contemporary world cannot be solved, neither in the weak context of democratic opposition, which in fact abandons millions of people to a nihilistic destiny, nor in the mystical context of destructive negation, which is another form of power, the power of death. Neither subtraction without destruction, nor destruction without subtraction. It is in fact the problem of violence today. Violence is not, as has been said during the last century, the creative and revolutionary part of negation. The way of freedom, I think, is really a subtractive one. But to protect the subtraction itself, to defend the new kingdom of emancipatory politics. We cannot radically exclude all forms of violence. The future is not on the side of the savage young men and women of popular suburbs. We cannot abandon them to themselves. But the future is not on the side of the democratic wisdom of mothers and fathers' law. We have to learn something of nihilistic subjectivity. The world is made not of law and order, but of law and desire. Let us learn from Pasolini not to be absorbed in a mysterious debate with power, not to abandon millions of young men and women, neither in the white mountains nor on the Syrian plains. We have to create something for everybody. Thank you.
Warum haben wir das Gedicht nicht auch auf Deutsch gehört? Why not in German too? You know? Why only system? Especially realpolitik, you know? It's not Italian. You know? It's not Marx either, it's Bismarck. It's Bismarck, the German Iron Chancellor. Yes. Also. Yes. My first comment, as you know, does not know people here. I have the right to comment as long as I want because I'm the director, okay? It's power, yes. First thing I note is that you should get in trouble tonight with Judith. Because what did you do today, right here, subordinating a poet to your political philosophy, even use every word of him like he was hidden in the theory.
It's an old polemics.
It's a problem. It's a problem. And the problem is even stronger because a text could be easily prose. There are only moments in it in which you see the poetry coming out. But it could be written in a newspaper if somehow, if you say, Pasolini, okay, a little bit crazy, why not using some fancy words? But in fact, make a statement. The point of poetry is that it faces you the riddle, if you want, the mystery of it. It is smarter and always smarter than you ever will be. So when you get into it, the surprises that it will not do and say what you like him to say. This will be there and you cannot erase it. That's why you cannot subordinate. You cannot erase it. You can be inspired. That is what you did on this. Okay. So I will not criticize it. I just want to make sure philosophers have to be very careful before they get near of poetry when they want to make an argument. But let's make the argument. This is an interesting idea to use this mathematical term, subtraction, abziehen. In fact, you remember, this is the first you learn, addition and subtraction. That's the first operation. And I must admit that's the only operation I understand in mathematics, and I'm not kidding. The rest, no idea. This one I can still understand, and I understand that when I abziehen, when I take something away, still a lot is still there. It's not that everything is destroyed and everything. So there is something still. In some way, there is a realpolitik in there, which is not the Bismarck, but it's also Bismarck. Bismarck realpolitik was about making compromises, not win everything, so lose some, win some. That's realpolitik. But in subtraction, some of that is still there. You know, you take something away, some criticism you cannot, negation you cannot avoid, but life still goes on.